This video, we are going to see about SRS. So SRS means Software Requirements Documentation or Software Requirement Specification. So this is like after collecting the requirements, we have to document whatever findings we have done. So for documentation, there is a standard template that has to be followed. And when I say SRS, it should include both the user requirements and the detailed specification of the system requirements. And when I say detailed specification, it should include both functional and non-functional requirements as well. And when it comes to the SRS, there are different users for the SRS. So anybody in the team can use the SRS, and any stakeholder can use the SRS. And the purpose for which the users refer to the SRS differs from one stakeholder to another stakeholder. Say, for example, here are some users who will be referring the SRS during the software development. One is the customer. He will check the SRS document to know whether all his requirements have been included or not. And maybe the managers use the SRS to plan for the development process. And maybe the engineers use the SRS to understand about the system and what feature has to be developed in the system. And next is the test engineers use the SRS to develop the validation test for the system. And finally, the maintenance engineers use the requirements documentation to understand the system and what type of relationship exists among the different modules. So these are the different stakeholders who will be referring to the SRS document throughout the development. And this is the template which has to be followed while you go for documenting the requirements. The first one includes all the introduction regarding the software development. The first subsection is the purpose of the requirements document. So here we have to mention why we need this SRS. And next one is scope of the product. You have to include what are all the features you are going to develop in the project. Say, for example, if I take an ATM system, I have an option for PIN change, I have an option for withdrawal, I have an option for deposit money, take mini statements, etc. So these are all the features which are supported by the ATM machine. So that you have to explain in 1.2. In the next section 1.3, you can include if you have any definitions, acronyms. Say, for example, if you take a banking application, you have IFSC code. IFSC, what is the abbreviation? You can write ATM, you can write. So like this, according to the project, whatever definition, acronyms and abbreviations you have, you can mention it in section 1.3. And next to 1.4, you can include whatever references you have made for development of this particular system. And finally, 1.5 is the overview of the remaining part of the SRS. Next is general description. Here you have to include the product perspective, what are all the functions you have to develop, then user characteristics, and if you have any other general constraints, it should be included in 2.4. And the last section 2.5, you have to include any assumptions and dependencies if you have. And next one is specific requirements. So here you have to cover all the functional, non-functional and interface requirements, whatever you have, what are all the modules you have, what type of information flows among the module, and the non-functional features like security, synchronization, reliability, whatever features you have included, you have identified that you have to include in the project has to be mentioned here. and finally appendix and index. So this is the template to be followed when it comes to SRS.